Okay, let's start by just taking a moment to close your eyes, to sit comfortably, and just notice your surroundings. Noticing the surroundings in the room that you're in, noticing the stuff that's going on inside of you. Right? There's going to be sound that comes in many different places. The external, the room you're in, the outside of the room that you're in, inside, deep inside, the noise of the mind, the sound of the intuition, the sound of the heart, both the physical heartbeat and the energetic heart. And then we're just taking another few moments just to take it all in without trying to exclude, without trying to discriminate, just let everything come in. And in allowing for everything to come in, what you may find is a sense of relaxation. You don't have to work so hard to push something away. Let everything just come in. And as you let everything come in, and of course there'll be a struggle. You'll say, no, not that, not this. It's supposed to be like that. It should be like that. That sound is annoying, on and on like that. As you continue with that struggle, because it is just part of being in the human condition, notice though if there's a relaxation at all in the body, because there is an allowing, there's a space for allowing everything in. Can you feel that your body relaxes a little bit? It may be just that the nervous system relaxes because you don't have to be on guard. Does your breath change just with the idea of letting everything in? Does that change anything for you? Okay. And then just without changing anything, go ahead, open your eyes. Okay. So let's start by just introducing, if you can introduce yourself. And I'd say we go around in a circle, but I think everybody's got a separate view of the gallery, or maybe you're on speaker. So we'll start with my view, which is Sue. So Sue, just introduce yourself and say why you're here.
Okay. My name's Sue McGee. I'm here because I did the yoga teacher training and immersion in the last session. And I think the reason I did it was I was sort of on a path to, I still am, will ever be on my spiritual journey, and I had been considering it for a while, and finally was an empty nester and felt like I had time to get dedicated to it. And it's probably the biggest spiritual endeavor for me to date. And it was great. I learned a lot, and I made some new friends who will be my friends for life, like-minded people. And my only problem now is what I'm doing next.
I'm gonna, and it just as a little icebreaker also, we can come back to you, Sue, if you don't have it right now. I'd like you to say your favorite confinement activity.
That's easy for me. I have been waking up really early because there's 4 of us in the house, me and 3 boys/men, and the mornings are my peaceful time, and I'm just like happiest when I've fed the cats and I have a nice cup of warm tea and I just sit in our little sitting room and read or do whatever I want to do before all chaos erupts later.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay, Heidi, you're next.
Can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Hi guys. So I am Heidi Breyer, and teacher training was pretty much a life-changing thing for me, and that it afforded me the insight to get to the depth that I needed to get to help my music. I'm a pianist, which those two things now are running in parallel as a result of the teacher training. That wouldn't have happened without teacher training, for sure. Out of that teacher training, I not just learned about yoga and the essence of yoga and what propels it and what helps us, but also about myself and also about my music. And again, like Sue, you know, met some wonderful people who I'll continue to be in touch with, and just learned a whole lot about so many different things. My favorite pastime is obviously playing the piano while we're in lockdown. However, that's in parallel with doing yoga, because I couldn't do one without the other now. So that is how much yoga has helped me. That's me.
Thank you. Denise.
There, I'm Denise. What am I supposed to answer first? Why do I want to do this?
Whichever you like. No, why you're here and what your favorite your confinement pastime is.
Why I'm here. This has been on my list for the past few years. And I've been homeschooling for 25 years, and my son graduated last week.
Oh, wow.
He's done with everything. So, so it's sort of the next step of what's up for Denise. How do I, you know, like I'm at a crossroad right now. Spent a long time focusing on my children, sleeping, eating with them, you know, bathing with them. Just so they're all leaving now, like you, Sue, the empty nest syndrome. And what's next for Denise? And my favorite pastime, oh boy, I would have to say the sleeping. I'm sleeping so well. Because I'm not running around doing all these things. I'm just more relaxed during the day, that I think I'm relaxing more at night. And I'm sleeping, I don't know, 7 or 8 hours sometimes, which I have not done. I mean, you know, I'm sleeping better, but it's much sounder now.
Great.
Yep.
Anne Marie.
Okay, so why I'm here? Is that the question?
Why you're at the meeting and what your favorite confinement pastime is.
Okay. I am basically, I think I'm here to gain more knowledge and expand my awareness spiritually, and to help myself follow my intuition better. And I've been on a path for a very long time of trying to hone in on my spirituality, and I haven't been content. So I feel like there's just always been a missing piece. Like I keep missing the mark. And when I came in January to your fire ceremony, I felt like I was on the right path. I really felt such connection with like-minded people, and I felt like my intuition was opening. So I'm going with the flow of that, and I'm going to keep on this course and see where it brings me. And just, I'm going to try to balance my pitta. This is taking over a lot. So I'm going to try and use discernment and self-discipline to just allow things to happen and to fall into place. So that's why I'm here. And my favorite downtime for the shut-in, I haven't found one yet, because I've been really busy making masks for the neighborhood, and it's been really consuming. But when, I think like Sue, in the morning time is my favorite time before anybody else gets up, and I have time to myself, and I ground myself in a lot of reading. And I've been doing a lot of spiritual reading and devotions and stuff. So that's, I guess, being inside, because I'm more of a outside person. So
Great, thank you. Rhonda?
Hi, I'm Rhonda Cole. I'm here because I just did the training, and certainly would encourage anyone else, if they're the slightest bit interested and able to do the training. It's something that I had wanted to do for a long time, but my work, it was just impossible with my work schedule. And so I retired last year, and it just, it was like what we were looking for. So I took the training, and one of the really cool things about it, I mean, there's lots of wonderful things about the training, but one of the things that I enjoy so much is, and Bonnie told us that this would happen, you never take a yoga class the same way ever again. This is something you've never experienced. We all enjoy yoga, but once you're involved in the teacher training, it's a whole new thing. And there's so many, you absorb so much more and are aware of so much more about what you're learning than the other people in the room, for sure. Like I said, I would just encourage anyone. My favorite pastime, that's a tough one for me.
It has to be a confinement pastime.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can tell you my house is really clean. I wouldn't say that's my favorite part, but for me, it's cooking. I have, I've spent some time going. I'm the type who, over years, tears out recipes out of magazines. That, oh, this looks really good. I'm going to do this. So I have this piles of stuff, and purchased a few recipe books, and finally cooking some things that I have been, that I've just never gotten around to. So I've been enjoying that.
Good, great. Kimberly.
Hi everyone, Kim. I'm here because I wanted to learn more about the teacher training, and I've been looking for a way to deepen my practice for some time, and I really like taking classes at Yoga Loka. I really like Bonnie. I like supporting other local businesses in town. So I think this is the perfect way for me to deepen my personal yoga practice and my spiritual practice, and maybe learn how to bring some of that to other people in a different way. And my favorite confinement pastime, I haven't really been too confined because I've been working. For those of you who don't know, I have a food business in Frenchtown, so we've been operating. But when I am home, I like to be outside, clearly, and reading. I've been doing a lot more reading, which has been good. Yeah, a lot more time by myself, so.
Thank you. Cindy.
Hi, sorry I'm late. My name is Cindy Buckley. I went through the teacher training program, the 200 and 300 hour, and now I just love it so much. I assist with the program wherever I can, and continue to do that. And my favorite downtime activity, I understand the question must be, I do have some downtime, but I am still working. I am working from home. But what I do with the extra time that I have, because I'm no longer commuting, is I am spending a great deal of time outdoors and cleaning up the yard and planting a garden and all those great things. So I'm enjoying the outdoors with all my extra time, and organizing the house. That's the other thing. Be organized.
All right, thank you. Okay, I actually have a PowerPoint to show you, which I hope is going to answer some of the answer some questions you may have, and then of course we'll have time for you to actually ask questions. Oh wait, let's see. I'm gonna share the screen. Let's hope I do this right. All right, do you guys see a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Great,
Yep.
okay. Okay, so I have plan A, B, and C written out. Here's a picture of the last class I just graduated. We had a beautiful ceremony at Sue's house. We had a puja and a lunch, and then a dance party, which is a first. We never had one of those before. And it was a terrible amount of fun. It was great. And I don't know what happened after I left, but I think it went on for some time afterwards. One thing that you should know about the teacher training and about the practice at Yoga Loka is that it comes from a very long lineage. So I have here my two major teachers that I've encountered that I've been fortunate to have studied with for so long. Parvati Nandanath Saraswati. I started practicing with her in 1997 when I moved out to Bucks County, and I'm still practicing with her. And it was with her that I took my first asana teacher training, and I started teaching for her at the Center Club, if any of you were around that long and remember the Center Club in Solebury, and one in Newtown. And so I started teaching for her before I even took the training. So she ran one of the early teacher trainings before teacher trainings were a big thing to do. And it lasted years. Seems like it lasted years. We didn't walk away from it for a long time. And little did I know that she was a meditation master and a tantric adept from infancy, pretty much. And so she no longer teaches asana. So my involvement with her is much more on a spiritual path. And Mukunda Stiles, I met in 2003, and just as soon as I met him, I knew I had to practice with him, with whatever he was teaching. And fortunately, he was teaching something very practical, which was structural yoga therapy. And so I started the structural yoga therapy program with him, which was 2 years long at the time, and then I just kept doing it. So kind of like Cindy, I assisted the next time, and wherever he was, I went, and whatever he was teaching, I was present for. So that took me to Colorado, took me to New York City, it took me to India, it took me to California a number of times. And I was, I don't know if it's right to say I was fortunate, but I was blessed to be with him when he left his body in 2014. And he also, although he was teaching something very practical, was a very deep tantrika, very deep devotee of Muktananda, Swami Muktananda, who was in the Siddha yoga tradition. And so I oftentimes felt when I was practicing with both of them that they were my spiritual mother and father, even though they were years apart and states apart. They did actually meet once, which is kind of exciting. And then I have more of my teachers. I have up in the top, I'm shown with Dr. David Berselli. Can you see my little pointer? Does that show up? Oops, come back. No, okay. Ma Ba, who also left her body recently. She was up at Ananda Ashram. She's a Sanskrit scholar. Right in the center there is Dr. Barry Gillespie, who I learned a lot about fascia. And of course, my kids, they can't be forgotten as big time teachers. My husband and my parents. And of course, there's many more teachers, but I got lost in the spiral of the online photos. You can be there forever. Some of the trainings that I took at Saraswati River Yoga is SRY, and that started in 1998. 2003, structural yoga therapy with Mukunda. I don't remember when I took my Reiki training, but it was somewhere near 2000 something. TRE in 2014, and 2028, that's funny. That should be 2018. Oh, we were so ahead of our time. And that's the cranial fascial work that I did with Barry Gillespie. And those were serious trainings, meaning that there was a certificate involved and not just workshops that I've taken with many other teachers. So I started teaching teacher trainings at 2003 when Yoga Loka was open. There was maybe 2 years where there wasn't a training, but since then there's been a training every year, either just a 200-hour, 200 and 300, or just a 300-hour training. I taught the faculty of yoga on Maine and at Saraswati River Yoga when they had training, and also Yoga Sphere, I didn't put that in. And I was fortunate to assist Mukunda in both structural yoga therapy and Ayurvedic yoga therapy in Palu, Colorado, integral yoga in New York City, and Yogaville. And there was a couple of years where I was able to assist David Berselli when he was teaching trainings, which he's doing again in Madison and Wisconsin. And I have, for short periods of time, been in these different faculty positions. And I just put Love Light in. It was only a weekend, but the other ones had longer periods of time. And okay, so now we're getting into the meat of what that was just a little brief history on me as your primary faculty member. Yoga Alliance is and please chime in with a question if you have one as I go on. Yoga Alliance is the governing body for yoga in the USA. And they've been gaining strength and stature for a number of years. And they offer a 200-hour and a 500-hour yoga certificate, teaching certificate. And in order to receive their certificate, you have to complete a training of one of their approved schools. And Yoga Loka is an approved school. And so let me back up for a moment by saying, no, let me continue with this. I'm sorry. I haven't thought how to order this, how to put the slides in the order that they need to be in. But this chart here, just quickly, it's not going to have a whole lot of meaning. You'll get this PowerPoint also if you wanted. They're actually changing their requirements, and I'm happy that they're changing their requirements because they're moving it more towards what Yoga Loka already had in place. So they're increasing the hours for anatomy and physiology. They're increasing elective hours, and and I'm happy to see these changes. So those you'll see coming. Well, I don't know what's going to happen now with the pandemic. Things are changing, constantly, but these are going to be rolled out somewhere in 2021. This is the curriculum. The numbers that you see are the hours that are built into the schedule that we have, and what the classification is. That does, even though it's not put out in the chart as the Yoga Alliance has it, it is comparable and in alignment with what their requirements are. For the training, there's 34 asana classes that you attend, both on your own, just as a student, and also with very specific assignments. And we can talk about what those assignments are in a little bit. Those are 34 hours, rather, not 34 classes, 34 hours. And there's 12 hours that are dedicated to spiritual studies. The spiritual studies is interwoven in every class. Every lecture will have a component of spiritual studies in it. But there's a 12-hour retreat that's very specific to spiritual studies. It's the Dakini Mandala of emotions, which is, I think is crucial for everybody to study. Everybody who's on this planet, but I only have domain over the people who actually come into the doors or sign up to the meetings. There's 56 hours devoted to structural yoga therapy, which is the way that we learn anatomy and kinesiology and the effects of asana in the body. The balance of 84 hours is dedicated to learning about poses. What is a triangle pose? How am I supposed to put myself in triangle pose? What are the contraindications? What are the benefits? What are the many different ways that we can do them? How do we cue people into them? How may we assist them if we're doing hands-on assists or verbal assists? Then you do some of your own studies on it, and hopefully you learn to fit the asanas to your body, because that's the best way to know how to fit it to somebody else's body. There's 12 hours of strict philosophy classes. We'll look at that later, which gives us a total right now of 195 contact hours. Right now, the requirement is 180 hours. And then there's 20 hours of electives homeworks, private sessions, and practice classes. And actually, I didn't tell Sue and Rhonda and Heidi, but when I went over the hours for their training, I didn't realize that we had actually gone well beyond the 200 hours also. I was like, wow, we're meeting a lot. And that's why I had made a mistake in the calendar. But since, well, it was too late. It was after I'd seen that, I was like, wow, that's what happened. That's why they were such an amazing class. We were together for so long. Of course, that's not the only reason. But it does the hours do tend to increase. Some of them, I should say, a lot of the hours increase, like the elective hours, those are voluntary. So those may be like attending Cindy's introduction to yoga class or attending David's meditation class, things like that. Things that you don't have to do, but that would be open to you as teacher training. Okay, so actually, I want to go fast forward through a slide for a second. Don't look. Oh, where is that slide? Oh, this is the one I wanted. Okay, so what I wanted to say is who takes the teacher training and where do they end up? So this is the first line where you see under who is an important thing to consider. About 80, oh, that is so wrong. Sorry, that should say about 80% of the people taking the program do not want to teach yoga. Not want to teach yoga. About 80% of the people who come in and take the training have no intention of teaching a yoga class ever in their life. And then 50% end up teaching in some capacity, and 75% end up to continue to study in some way, whether that's taking the extra 300 hours or taking whether at Yoga-Look or elsewhere, or taking supplemental trainings, or taking some kind of coursework that kind of has to do with yoga or spirituality, but may not be a teacher training. So it's one of the reasons I'd like to emphasize that this is a yoga immersion. You don't necessarily have to take the training to become a teacher. You don't necessarily have to want to become a teacher to want to be immersed in the practice, because most people who come into the training actually don't have an interest in teaching, and it's completely open to the people in the training as to whether or not they are going to fulfill the obligations that are necessary in order to get their certification. So you may come into the training, you say, well, I'm not going to do the homework and I don't need to do a practice class because I don't want to teach. And that is actually okay as long as that doesn't hold the rest of the class back. So if you say, I just want to come in for the information and hang out, that's fine. But don't ask a lot of questions that have to do with kinesiology if you're not doing kinesiology homework. That's it. And I actually haven't seen that that's been that was a problem many, many years ago, and I haven't seen it for maybe about maybe 10 years, that there are a couple people who are not taking it for teaching, but they spent a lot of time asking questions that they would have known the answer to if they had done the homework. I think, I don't know. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is how the schedule works out right now, today, sitting here today, thinking, life is gonna go back to normal in a matter of weeks or months. This is what it looks like today. And you'll see that I put out what's a lecture in yellow, physical in blue, and in gray is class attendance, meaning like here, Sunday, 8:30 to 9:45, you're taking the yoga class. And that's where the gray is class attendance. And why you're taking the yoga class, in addition to all the other classes that you might be taking during the week, is because I'm feeding you information about something that we studied together as a class. I'm feeding teacher trainees that information in class, because I think it's really important that you hear a lecture about certain information and then you see it in practice, you see it in action. And the action that you're seeing it in is not necessarily just in your own body, but also in other people's bodies. We have somewhat of an experience of being in our own body, although not totally. And you'll see that changes too as you take classes. As you take the training, you become more embodied. And what we don't know is what it's like to be in somebody else's body, which is, sometimes good news and sometimes not good news. But the viewpoint of a yoga teacher, if you are thinking about being a yoga teacher, is you have to understand how people, not how they're experiencing, because we'll never know that, but to have some sort of a glimmer that people are not experiencing things the way that you're experiencing things, which I think is a very important thing to have anyway. whether or not you're becoming a yoga teacher, because that's just the way life is. So any conversation, any interaction you have with somebody, you understand that they're seeing it through different eyes. So we go into the class and we take the class as a student, but you're here, I'm telling you things that if you were a student, you wouldn't, if you were just a regular student, you may not understand, but you're also observing other people in the class and you're trying to figure out, why is she harping on that point? Why does she keep repeating that? All these things. It makes more sense when you're actually in it, but I just wanted to explain why the class attendance is important. And while I have you registered in here for the early morning class, which is based on structural yoga therapy, after the, let's say back towards December and January, you can start to change what class that is. You can come to the 10 o'clock class instead if you really like the spicy flow and you like a rigorous practice. But I have found over the years that people usually stick with this earlier class because there's a lot to learn in it.
Bonnie, I have a question.
Yes.
The class attendance, are we watching or are we participating?
You're participating, but sometimes you might be watching. You wouldn't be watching until kind of the second half here.
Okay.
You're participating, you could be taking notes while you're participating. You could be recording it so you can review it after. And then the questions that you come up with within the class, we'll talk about later when we meet together.
Okay.
So I want you to generate questions to say, oh, why did we do this pose? And why did we not do this pose? And why did the person in front of me not do it? And why didn't you correct the person in front of me? Things like that. And while they're still fresh in your head, we can talk about them and have an understanding of why things may be different for certain people and certain practices. So what I did is I put a line at the end of November. It's not the end of November, but it'd be last at end of our class time, because then we start to get into Thanksgiving. And then what we have here is a total of 80.5 hours, the way this is scheduled here. So that's for Plan A. And then Plan B, this actually should be up here. These are all the things that you find out when you first show a slideshow, what the way it should be actually. And so coming back to the end, oh no, I was right. Okay, coming back to the end of November, we have a total of 80 hours. And what I did is I restructured it. Instead of having 2 really long days from 12 to 6 and from 1 to 7, which is what was on Plan A, we have much shorter days on Saturday and Sunday so that we're not sitting in front of a computer all day, which could be very exhausting. And we add 2 hours on Wednesday, and we add a few more Fridays. And then what we do is we're doing some physical work, but the physical work is something that can easily be done online with some very strong observation on my part and Cindy's part in watching and trying to guide you verbally. It's things that if we weren't on Zoom. So let me just emphasize that Plan B is if we are not able to meet together. I hope that was clear. Plan B is if we're not able to meet together. So we break up the time so we're not on Zoom for 7 hours. I actually have to do that tomorrow, and I'm not sure at all how it's going to go. I hope that we'll all survive. But I don't think it's a good idea. And we had, some of you were at the Durga practice that we had a couple of weeks ago, and I think it worked out much better to have 3 hours and 3 hours. So Plan B is that we break it up. We have Wednesdays and some Fridays included. And by the end of November, we're also at 80 hours. We're half an hour behind Plan A, but that's not a big deal. That can be made up at any time. Plan C is that we don't add Wednesdays and Fridays, so you don't feel like, well, you know, some people love the idea that yoga has taken up their whole life. Some people don't like the idea. So what I did is I didn't add Wednesdays and Fridays. I just cut down Saturdays and Sundays. And at the end of November, we're at 47 3/4 of an hour. So we're a little bit more than halfway where we would have been in Plan A. So what this Plan C would mean is that hours would be added back here at the end. If we find that we can be together in a group, we would just have to continue past March. Right. Now, the question may come up, well, how do we decide? I think we decide when we know what's happening, and we decide based on the class and who's attending and what the people who are composing the class, the people who are part of the class list their preferences. It also could be a little bit of both. Maybe every other Wednesday is added, maybe every other Friday, or just Wednesdays or just Friday, something like that. There's a lot of flexibility. We have to be flexible. We really don't have a choice in the environment, the way the world is now. So we do have a choice, though. The training, when I used to run the training, it went from September until June. It was many, many more months than it is now. And I have to be honest with you, is that I like that format better because it gives each student a chance to mature more in the practices. I don't mean mature like who you are as a person. I'm not making a comment on that. We're all mature. But it gives you, well, let me replace mature with marinate. It gives you a longer time to marinate in the practice and in the process. And I really feel that time is needed. I cut the schedule down because of all the other trainings that are out there. It's still Yoga Loka from September to March is still one of the longer trainings, and people just want things to be done really quickly. So I was finding that I was competing against 1 month training or 5 weekend trainings, and people wanted to have it done quicker. So we could go back to the format of September to June, and I would be quite happy with that. Let's see if I have anything else of interest here. I just want to check and see, because then we'll get to questions. Okay. And your homework, I'm not going to get too much into depth because not all of it makes a whole lot of sense until, most of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense until you're actually in the practice itself. There are some written assignments. Kinesiology reports are usually about 3 or 4 lines. Class observation is when you're in a class and you talk about what you see, just as simple as it sounds. I want you to start looking at classes and see what's going on, both from what the students are doing, what the teacher is doing, what's involved in setting up a class if you do want to teach. There's a lot of multitasking, but hopefully not in a stressful way, because if there's stress involved, it just doesn't work. Yoga Sutra paper report, you pick a sutra and you write about it, how meaningful it is to you. Vocabulary words. Studio visits, you go to 2 different studios. Even if you've been to 2 other studios, you go as a teacher trainer. You don't tell them that you're in the teacher training, but you just take a class and you look and you see how the style differs or is similar. And it's not, it's not a contest. I want you to see what styles you resonate with, if you were to set up your own class, would you do what they did? Would you not? Would you take that on? Would you not? Because we are mirroring people constantly. And so I want you to be aware of what information you're taking in and what you're doing with it. This has to come out. So 4 class assists, actually that probably comes out too. You get 1 private, and if there's possible to observe a private, we do that. Sometimes we get somebody in from not in the training who has a very structural issue in their bodies. Actually, Sue, you were one of those models, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Right before you started the training. So she came in with a structural issue, and the 300-hour trainee sat in and watched, I think, 2 sessions, right? We did an hour session and a half-hour session.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just interesting because you're not training to be a yoga therapist, but it is interesting, I think, and informative to see how you can use yoga in a therapeutic application, because you are doing that as a teacher and you're doing that as a student too. So it's interesting to see how we might work. And some people will end up doing private sessions. Some people will not end up teaching classes. They do private sessions. You do a 30-day joint freeing series practice, and that should be done towards the beginning, especially if we're still in confinement. It should be easy to do it then. And then in class, you're doing some practice cueing, pose modifications and muscle modification, Ayurvedic cueing, practice sessions, because if you do want to be certified by the Yoga Alliance, you're doing a practice class. You're going to present a class to the rest of the class, like a teaching, like a 1 hour asana class. And sometimes more things are added, sometimes things are taken away, and there's just a little note there that reports can be succinct. So if you're not a writer, don't worry about it. I'm not looking for, in fact, I prefer that they not be very long because I have to read them all. What is involved in the non-asana classes. So this is kind of what these topics here that you see are dispersed throughout the training. When we have a full day of training, I don't like to do a full day of asana because people get exhausted and then people get injured. So usually what the format is we might do a little asana, then we do some talking, then we do some asana, then we do some talking, especially after lunchtime, right? We're not jumping right into asana. So what we can do if we are not together, and for some of the things that just don't make sense to do on Zoom, we would do them later in the training. And some of these things like the koshas and the chakras and prana, I used to wait until the end of the training to do, and I found it's actually much more beneficial to do it towards the beginning of the training, even though it may be confusing, because it is stuff that we're working with all the time anyway. We just may not know what the name of it is. So these non-asana lectures would be brought to the front of our time together. So September, October, and November, if we're not able to be together. And then as we get later in the year, if we are able to meet, then we would catch up on the actual physical stuff. But there's a lot that can be done in a lecture presentation. There is also a lot that can be done even physically while we're still on Zoom. But this is anyways part of your curriculum, all of this information here. And then the online asana classes, there's a lot, as I was saying, there's a lot we can do. We can talk about sequencing. Chair yoga lends itself wonderfully to Zoom, actually. How to cue. So one of the things that is used in classes, in-person classes, is hands-on assists. But hands-on assists are actually decreasing even before the virus came, because of lawsuits and stuff. So we want to focus on how can we guide somebody safely and inform them about a pose using a bunch of different techniques, directional visual imagery, things like that. And Zoom is actually a perfect test to how, if we're doing it right, because you really have to be sharp on your observations and on how you're cueing. You should be able to cue a blind person into a pose. That's what I'd like to see when people graduate, that they can do that. Well, graduate from the 500 hour, not necessarily from 200 hours. And you can do class observations on Zoom, I think. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think. And then you can participate in the online classes, and we can talk about and modify common difficulties and injuries that might appear in asana classes and may be caused by asana. Okay, then I want to jump back here because I don't think I talked about this. So some of the graduates of teacher training have ended up in corporate programs, whether it's in their own office or other people's offices. There's a lot of companies that have brought in yoga practices, recognizing benefit of offering yoga practices to their workforce. Health fairs, I did a few myself, and other special events like, well, actually bridal yoga. I've done some bridal parties, which is always fun. They're usually hungover by the time they get to the studio, but you know, maybe you can work that out differently. Studio or health centers. One of the graduates, the 500-hour program, ended up, I think she's still doing it, is managing Health Quest's yoga program. Training programs, doing your own training, owning a studio. A lot of people are teaching in schools, either for the staff or the children. Many people go into like elder care homes or special need programs and hospitals. And people who don't end up actually teaching yoga find that they can use the skills that they learned in yoga in whatever it is they're doing now or what they're going in to do, because it's a holistic practice. It doesn't just affect what your physical asana practice is. It's affecting how you relate to the world. The cost, this information is on the website also. The only change that from recent is that I extended the deadline for the deposit discount. $100 is discounted if you commit by July. And if you pay in full, there's another discount. And if you do the 300 hours, there's an additional $100 discount if you finish the Yoga Local program. And there's also something called the Jump Start, which can get you started now. I mean, it's not as exciting now that we're online, but it still works because we're still doing workshops and we're still having classes. This also is online, and I also extended that ended in the beginning of April, so extended it to May. So if you're interested in committing to the program, you don't necessarily want to wait until September to really immerse yourself. You can put your deposit in now, and then you get this 20% off of workshops, 40% off of class cards, and another early tuition discount. Yeah, and that is my slideshow. I hope I didn't talk too fast.
No.
Okay. All right. So now let me hear from you. What are your questions?
I don't know. That was sounded great to me.
I know it's hard to come up with questions. Some people come in with questions, and I know a big question, particularly for the few people who weren't able to attend today, was what's plan B? Or what are we going to do if we can't be together? And of course, I can't answer definitively because nobody really knows. But I think that either of those two scenarios will take us through. The thing that I can guarantee is that you'll finish the training. Even if it takes us 2 years, you'll finish the training. So I can guarantee that. How the training pans out, I can't say. And I think that's going to run for anything that anybody embarks on in now, is nobody can really say. Both of my kids are starting new schools, new colleges in September. And so I've been reading all of the contingency plans, and everybody's saying, yes, we will be open in September. Yes, of course, but we may have to do things differently. And that's true for the whole world now, really. So, so in some ways, it may be the absolute perfect time to start a training, and in some ways, it may not be. Where did my second screen go? Oh, well. Yeah, that's all I have to say. I mean, it's not all I have to say. I always have to say more. But for now, that's all I have to say.
When will you decide if you're going to do B or C? It's just kind of going to be.
I think we
B
just
and
have
C
to,
are similar.
oh, whether we do B or C,
Mhm.
did you say? That's going to depend on who comes into the training and what the preferences are. And it may be that we start B and people say, you know what, it's just too much time. And then we move to C.
Okay.
Things have always been somewhat fluid in the training because it's important that that we always put our family obligations first. And so I want to make sure that people are not feeling stressed out and are not feeling overworked and have a life. You know, it's not a cult. So I don't want all of your attention. I want to, it's really important for a sustainable yoga practice that you integrate this information into the rest of your life. And so that's why I said the maturing process, and I didn't like the implications that maybe that, oh, you guys, you're so immature, but that you mature into a yoga practitioner. And it does take time. And so part of that time is being out in the world and experiencing the difficulties of family, of confinement, of, you know, of trying to integrate your practices with work and have enough time to do all of that. So if it turns out that that plan B is just not giving us enough time to do that with family, then we go to plan C. Because I don't know, I've never done it like that. I've done more plan C than I have B. Right?
Okay.
It's more along the lines of what the classes used to look like. So I don't know what plan B would feel like for people. So we would have to see.
Okay.
Yeah. I know some people may be eager to have their certificate so they can go out and teach, but if we're still all, you know, like this, there's really not going to be a whole lot of opportunity to teach. And so you get more time to marinate.
Yeah, I think marinating is great.
Yeah.
Tastes better if you marinate.
It tastes a lot better and you become more tender, right?
Yeah.
You become more tender with the spices. The spice of the practice tenderizes you.
Okay.
So that's a big question mark. That reminded me that there was something. Oh, yeah. The other thing that I wanted to say, because I was saying you'll get stressed out. I think everybody at some point in the training gets stressed out and says, I can't do this. And you can and you will, because everybody can and does in whatever way it works out. And it's one of the things that Cindy is here for. And it's one of the things that if you want to reach out to Sue, Rhonda, and Heidi and find out how intrusive was it, how stressful was it, how difficult was it, how mean was I, how strict was I, they're the ones to answer your question. Because I'm going to say, oh, I was wonderful. And they'll be like, so, so you can ask Cindy too, but you don't know if she's in cahoots with me or not. And Cindy has always been a great support to the teacher trainees. And she's done things like organized small groups or extra practice time before or after class that she might be teaching. I understand that this year the teacher trainees had a Slack channel going so that they can talk about me. No, just kidding. They can stay in communication about things that might have been coming up for them. And also you guys got together quite a bit to do practices, right? And so the other question that comes up oftentimes is what happens if I have to miss a class? So remember, family is number one. If you say, I have a wedding to go to, what do? Go to the wedding. Unless you want an excuse not to go to the wedding, and then it's up to you to say, sorry, I can't come to the wedding, I have teacher training. Classes will be recorded. It used to be that everything was recorded by audio, but now that we have so much accessibility to Zoom, particularly if it's an asana-based class, you'll get a video of it, and then you can review it on your own time. And then the questions that come up from, like, you didn't understand or you need to practice it some more, then you talk to to Cindy or to your other classmates and see if somebody wants to get together. Reviewing information for somebody is always going to help you to understand it better. It's
So
like,
Cindy, you're available then for helping with extra things that we might have questions about?
Absolutely. I love doing that. My 300-hour teaching art program, we got together, and I've said this before to many people, we got together every Friday night and ourselves, and I found that was the most beneficial way to start to integrate the information that we received from the week before. And be able to teach each other, to work with each other, to practice whatever somebody was missing. So that was a component that I really thought was important. And I'm happy to continue doing that. It's a favorite way for me to go about it too. Yeah.
and then they had dinner together. So it wasn't all work.
Well, it always involved food.
It always involved food. Food and wine, I think.
Sometimes the wine, mostly food. Yeah.
Was that your first graduating class, Bonnie?
Oh, no, that was the most recent.
Most recent, okay.
Yeah, the first graduating class was in 2003.
Oh, wow, okay.
Oh, was it 2003? Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm. What did I miss? What did I miss, those of you who took it already?
Would you do it again?
I would do it again.
You would do it again.
Clearly, I would do it again. I haven't left. It's been, 5 years now? So, yeah.
Okay.
I have to say that, I thought that there was going to be a dip in my practice afterwards because it was a commitment time-wise and it was intense, and it hasn't. So that's a really encouraging thing. I've found that I needed to continue that in my life. Even though I haven't taught, I haven't done any teaching, but it became such an integral part of my life. And so, the structure of it changed. I wasn't going to the lectures and all the rest of it, but the asana remained. I still attend the workshops that I can, that my schedule permits, and the spiritual learning has really increased since as well. So it's almost like a springboard for what comes after that too, and that doesn't have to be teaching. Just really good. I was going to ask a question about the difference in the 200 and 300, Bonnie, because maybe I should do that offline. I don't know.
No, you can ask that, but let's just see if that answered Denise's question.
Sure.
Yes. She would do it again.
Well, you know me, you get a full answer.
Okay.
And before you change topics, I would say, yes, I would do it again. And one thing I really liked, two things I really like about our class is, I would say in general, Bonnie's classes are small, nice and small, so that you get a lot of individual attention and you really get to know your fellow classmates, but big enough that you also benefit by their experience. And in particular, one thing I really liked about our class is we had a nice representation of different generations, which is a nice way of saying some of us older folks were happy to have some young ladies in the class. I just think it's kind of nice when you cross-pollinate, not only how different people look at things, but how different ages look at things. I just really like that.
Yeah, that's true.
I have a question about where I'm at right now, because I'm such a beginner and this is all so very new to me. I'm wondering, is this more for somebody who has had experience, a couple of years experience?
Not
doing yoga?
necessarily. No, that's not necessary.
There have been teachers in the past that were very new to yoga coming into the training in the last couple of years too. And like Bonnie said in the beginning, if you're not interested in teaching, or even if you are interested in teaching, it's a really great program to take just for own self knowledge and growth. And that's why I got into it to begin with. It changed after that, but for own self-knowledge and growth. And so it's all the yoga things that you see coming in Yoga Loka, all those classes you see, it's all combined into one program for that full time frame.
Okay.
Yeah, so and then continuing, because I'm still doing all the classes, and it's been a number of years, because there's so much to kind of integrate and learn and rediscover and hear differently.
And if you're new to yoga, there's nothing that you have to unlearn.
Right. Right. No bad habits to unwind.
Seriously, I was just going to say that because I felt like I spent a lot of time, my inner voice saying, are there any poses I've been doing right all these years?
And at the end of the program, do your students get certificates if they complete this? So it would be like a 200-hour certificate or a 300-hour certificate?
Yeah, so you get a, once you finished all of my Yoga Loka requirements, you get a certificate from me, and then you take that certificate and you use it if you want to apply to the Yoga Alliance certification, right? So there's difference between the Yoga Loka 200 hours and the Yoga Alliance 200 hours, which is basically if you want to teach and you go to apply to a health club or something there, and you give them my graduation, my diploma, they're not going to care about it. They want to see that you have a Yoga Alliance certificate, and it's going to cost you some money. What does it cost now? Did anybody just recently?
About $90 for the yearly certificate. No, a little bit less, a lot less than that. It's about $60 or $40 for joining a Yoga Alliance, and then the insurance is about $90 for the year. That's if you want to teach.
Right, that's if you want to teach. If you don't want to teach and you finished all the things that I've asked you to do, you do get a certificate from me. You actually don't have to, let's say you get a certificate from me in 2020 and you don't think you want to teach until 2023, you can still take the certificate and apply to the Yoga Alliance. I believe you can do that. And then pay that money and do that paperwork and get your certificate with them.
So getting a certificate from you would be part of what I would need to get certified through the Yoga Alliance?
Right.
They would apply your credit hours to theirs.
Exactly. Basically, since I'm an approved school in the Yoga Alliance, then they trust that my curriculum is meeting what their requirements are. That's all they need. They need that, and they need your credit card number, and you're in.
And then where do you go from that? Like if I take this program and then I want to continue to teach, if I want to teach, I have to go get those hours from the Alliance, correct?
No, you just put in your certificate and you pay their fee, and then you get their certification also. You get another piece of paper and you're listed on their website. And so if you go, I don't know how prevalent it is that people are asking for Yoga Alliance certificates. More and more places are. So if you go to a hospital to teach or a school or something like that, they want to see the certificate. If you're
Sure.
teaching in your living room, I don't know if people are going to care whether you have the certificate or not.
Right.
You do need insurance. You need liability insurance.
Ev-
So,
ev-
and I would say that since you went ahead and did something that aligned with the Yoga Alliance and you do want to teach, you might as well just go ahead and pay the extra $90
Right.
or whatever it is and get the certificate. And that it just puts you into a part of a database. So
Okay.
if
So
I don't,
where does the 300, 200, 500 hours?
okay. So you're taking, the entrance into this is 200 hours. That's your first training that you take is 200 hours. Now, after people take 200 hours, sometimes they say, I'm not done. And then you take another 300 hours. And actually what that does is it gives you a 500-hour certificate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's either the distinctions are 200 hours and 500 hours. And then there are teachers who have registered with much more than 500-hour trainings. Like I'm now an EYT 1000, which means I have over 1,000 hours of training. It doesn't mean any, like, if I went to a job, would I get paid more for that? I don't know. Like I like to think of the 200 and 300, the 200 and 500-hour distinction as like a bachelor's degree and a master's degree.
Okay.
So you can get by with a bachelor's degree, and sometimes you want to spend more time and then you go for your master's.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the PhD program is going to be. Probably that's yoga therapy.
So I'm still a little confused with the 300 hours. I'm sorry to be.
So you
taking
can
up
only
too much.
take the 300 hours after you finish the 200-hour program.
And is that with you?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the Yoga Alliance, I think it used to be that you could take a 200-hour program anywhere, and then you could take a 300-hour program anywhere and have your 500 hours. They may have changed it where you have to take the 300-hour program at the place you took your 200-hour program. But I wouldn't worry about that until you finish the 200 hours.
Yeah. Okay. But you
Oh,
offer that. You would
yeah.
offer that.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's going to segue into Heidi's question, which is what's the difference between the 300-hour and the 200-hour? And the difference is huge and nothing. So the 300-hour students take the classes along with the 200-hour students, but with even not having done anything other than done your practice class, you get the certificate. As soon as you step into the first class with the new session, you see everything different. So if you think you see things differently from before you took the 200-hour to now, you'll be amazed at how much differently you see it as beginning a 300-hour student. Everything is different. It's like somebody turned the light on. And if you're thinking of the 200-hour, don't think, oh, I want to take that. You can't. You have to do the 200-hour first.
You have to find the light bulb first.
You have to find the light bulb. You have to find the light switch. It's like the three-way bulbs. You know, you click it once, you click it twice, you click it 3 times. You have to click it once to get that first light on. Then the 300 hours, clicking it twice, and you see everything differently. And it's an amazing way that you integrate even people who have taken the 300-hour years later or over a summer and not practice it all of the summer. They all say the same thing. Oh, wow, I didn't see that before, and now I see it. And Cindy and I have marveled at the difference that we see in the understanding. Yeah, you're hearing the same material over. Yes, you are, but no, you're not, because the material always changes depending on who the group is. And the material also changes depending on what my practice is and what Cindy's practice is, right? We are marinating also. So the information is continuously getting upgraded. And because I spent already since the quarantine, I've spent probably 7 days in retreat with Parvati. And while we're not talking about asana, it's informing everything that I do, just as your own spiritual advancement is informing everything that you do. So the information is continuously getting upgraded, as are the applications. And so you're hearing similar material because it starts the same way, but you're hearing it at a different way, and you're hearing it from a different person. Okay. And then the other things that happen is after the March, well, I'll give you an example. So if everything had not shut down, Brittany was scheduled to come teach at the Hunterdon County Library with me for a group of complete, absolute new beginner students. So she was scheduled to come and do that with me. I think she was going to come to Yoga on Main and teach the joint freeing series with me. So she starts to assist. She was supposed to be assisting in classes, you know, and this is all going to have to be put on hold, obviously, because she can't assist in classes now. Assist in classes, focus on a specific theme that she's interested in. So she's actually already chosen what she wants to focus on. And then she has to implement a project with my assistants on that specific theme. The other thing is that what is required of 300 hours, and I used to require it of 200 hours and I stopped, even though there is that 12 hours, is spiritual study. So in the 300-hour program, you are required to take the spiritual study program, which Brittany was actually happy to do because that was where most of her focus of interest was. Because I feel very strongly that your spiritual practice, the work that you do on yourself, your self-inquiry, is what's going to change how you teach and what you teach. We cannot be effective teachers without first working on ourselves. And the 200-hour doesn't quite support that, just given the amount of time we have. 200 hours to learn asana and to learn philosophy and to work on yourself, it's just not enough time. So the 300 hours, that's amped up. It actually ends up to be, I believe, far more than 300 hours. So like this Yoga Sutras that we're doing, that's part of Brittany's curriculum. And then all those other things that I said. And over the years, the 300-hour has looked different, again, depending on who was taking it, how many people were taking it, and what the demands were, meaning what they wanted to have come from the program. And it's always been maybe once it wasn't a smaller group than the 200-hour. And so also part of the 300 hours is that you're mentoring the 200 hours.
Okay. So this is going to take like 2 years, pretty much.
If you want to do 500 hours,
right?
Take 2 years, yeah. Brittany took, I think, a year in between, or maybe 2 years. I don't remember. 2 years. Cindy took a year, right? You took a year off?
No, I can't. I was going to. I got out of 200 hours and slept all summer, and decided at the last minute.
It wasn't my fault that you slept all summer.
No, it wasn't. I was I was not feeling well, but yeah, I kind of walked away from it, not intentionally, and I found that I missed it so much and needed to be a part of it again. So I went right into my 300-hour.
Yeah, it's something also that, there's one of the reasons that I really liked having the possibility of doing a 300 is because it's like the 200 hours is over and people are like, oh, what happened? Where'd everybody go? Where did my structure go? We don't, especially when the program was longer, you don't realize how much of a blessing a certain structure is. Oh, I have to be at class. I don't have a choice to say no. And so people found, especially if they have a difficult time structuring themselves, just going into the 300-hour program just so they can have a structure. I don't think that's completely true, but I think that had actually a lot to do with it for some people, because there are people who have finished the 500-hour program like, oh my gosh, I don't have a structure. That's also depending on the person's personality and, how they approach information and what they're doing. And some people have finished the 500-hour and, gone to open up a studio or teaching elsewhere, or some people have just dropped yoga completely. So everybody's
hours to stop doing yoga.
Yeah. Wow. I you know what? It's just that's what their progression was. There's no way that working 500 hours plus in your yoga certification has not informed them with what they're doing. It just wasn't the final step. It was a step towards something else.
Okay.
And there, of course, have been people who moved away and I've lost touch with and I don't know what they were doing, right? But you see, there's, even at Yoga Loki, you see a lot of 500-hour people. They're still just there taking asana classes. They're not teaching. They're just taking asana classes like everybody else.
Well, not like everybody else, but they're taking,
Yeah, I don't know, actually. Probably not like everybody else. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
The project essentially that you do in 300 hours, that's the thing that takes it longer than 200 hours. I mean, I'm just thinking of the time span.
No, it's
No?
not. That's what you, so if you're in the 300 hours, you're still working with me and the other 300 hour students until about June, and
Oh.
sometimes over to the summer. The summertime is what I hope that people will work on their own project. That's
Okay.
not even, it's actually not even counted in the hours.
Okay.
So the extra 100 hours is doing the introduction to yoga and assisting Cindy, which is something else that a lot of 300 hour people had done. Is taking the Yoga Sutras, is taking the 30 hours or so of spiritual studies, like that.
So the
Maybe there's a few
graduating,
hours.
the graduating class that just graduated, that was your 200-hour class?
That was the 200 hours. Yep. The 300 hour student was there too. And so she graduated she finished her 200 hours as a mark for her finishing the 200 hours, but she's still continuing.
Okay.
so sometimes, if this might help you understand, sometimes when we were in class and Bonnie would say, or give us an assignment or whatever, and then she'd look over at Brittany and say, but you have to do blah, 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 because
Mhm. Oh, gotcha.
it's required her than us.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
And then sometimes I'd ask a question and Brittany would start to say the answer. I'd say, no.
Yeah, right.
And when nobody else knew it, then I'd let her say it.
Gotcha.
But you have to take first grade before you get into second grade. So
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much
That's
where
fine.
it's at. There's no choice for a 200 hour person. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I'm available to you for more questions, and Cindy is as well. She's waving her hand. And Heidi and Rhonda and Sue will let me know if they're available for more questions. Sue says yes. Rhonda
Definitely.
says yes. Heidi says yes. This is like a bidding war, you know. So if you have their emails, you can just reach out to them. If you don't, I'll give them to you, and you can reach out to them, or Cindy will give them to you, and you can reach out to them and ask them questions that may come up.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, I don't have any except yours.
Well,
I just
thank
want to
you.
add that Cindy, from the student's perspective, Cindy is an angel.
Oh,
Ditto.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Aw.
from a teacher perspective, we have the best students for sure.
Aw.
Are amazing.
You can't see their halos or wings on Zoom.
No.
That's the only problem.
They're there. They're there.
That's it. That's until next year, students.
Yeah, right. Out comes the whip.
I would say that we've been fortunate that we've had more good classes than not good classes. Because there have been some classes that Cindy and I go, oh, thank God that's over.
So as far as the schedule, you'll just come September, you make the decision week by week or whatever, we'll see where you are and then
Well,
that's where we
you know,
go.
if September, everything is open, we just go to plan A. If in the middle it changes, then we go to plan B or C.
Okay.
If September comes and nothing is open, then we start with plan B, I guess, and then we wait and see if plan C is going to be the way it goes.
Okay.
But again, we'll have to see who accumulates for the class and see where.
How many do you usually need for a class?
I need 5 to run a class, and
That's for 200 hours.
that's for 200 hours, right?
What was that?
It was a
The
loud
ice
noise.
machine, sorry.
It was an off-screen noise. All right, well, if there's no questions, I will send you the recording once it's, I don't know if you guys are gonna need the recording, but I'm gonna send it out to that list that I sent the link to along with the PowerPoint, and you could just not download the recording just as easily as download it. And that's it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Great day.
Everybody
By
for
the
your
way,
for your openness and answering questions.
Yeah. Oh, them. Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
can-
Email me if you have anything else that you remember later.
Okay, great.
All right.
Good
To see everybody.
Have a
Bye.
nice day. Bye-bye.